And the Oscar goes to Titanic.
Titanic.
Titanic. For Titanic.
For Titanic.
For Titanic. For Titanic. For Titanic.
For Titanic.
For Titanic.
James Cameron for Titanic.
The male lead, why'd you choose him?
So Leo comes in. So the meeting was funny because I'm sitting in my conference room waiting to meet an actor, right? And I look around and all the women in the entire office are in the meeting for some reason. Like there's a female executive producer, okay, fine. But our accountant, why was she in the meeting? They just all wanted to meet Leo. So Leo came in, of course, charmed everybody, myself included. And I said, all right, well, let's see what your chemistry is like with Kate. He didn't know he was going to test. And I said, okay, so we'll just go in the next room, we'll run some lines and I'll video it. And he said, you mean I'm reading? And I said, yeah. He said, oh, I don't read. And I said, well, I shook his hand. I said, well, thanks for coming by. And he said, wait, you mean if I don't read, I don't get the part, just like that? And I said, oh yeah, come on. This is like a giant movie. It's going to take 2 years of my life, and you'll be gone doing 5 other things while I'm doing post-production and all the model work and everything. So I'm not going to fuck it up by making the wrong decision in casting. So you're going to read or you're not going to get the part. He's like, oh, okay. And then he turned into Jack. And Kate just lit up and they went into this whole thing and he played the scene. I'm like, all right, he's the guy.
Finally, what is there about DiCaprio?
Leo is unlimited. Leo is a guy who, fortunately, understands his gift well enough to be able to go to the hardest thing he can find.
I actually didn't see Kate at first. She had done a couple of other historical dramas as well, and she was getting a reputation as Corset Kate. So I thought, oh man, this is gonna look like the laziest casting in the world. All right, I'll meet her, sure. But I was thinking maybe Gwyneth Paltrow or somebody else. And I met Kate, and she was fantastic.
I did every day think, how did I get this part? How did I get this part? I mean, even still now, it's like, huh?
Were you initially reluctant to take this role?
A little bit. I don't really like sort of these gigantic, huge films for some reason. They seem to be a lot more about the special effects and less about actually a story with content, I didn't want to discriminate against this movie just because it was huge, because it was a terrific script, It was a great character, and then overall, overall it had a lot of important things in a movie.
Did you connect with her immediately once you met? Did you two realize, you know what, this is going to be good. We're going to be good together.
I think we definitely initially said, oh wow, we respect each other's work, and we wanted to do, we're both big reasons why we wanted to do this picture, was to work with each other too. We definitely needed, a shoulder to sort of lean on, and we were there for each other constantly. That our chemistry sort of just naturally happened, I think, on screen. We just like each other as people.
Yeah. My God, did I want Leo to play that part. And thank God that he did. It was great. Once I started working with Leo, we were able to kind of find our own rhythm, and
sort of mutual respect that we had for each other before we started working together really did lend itself to the beginning of a great friendship, because it was built on very strong foundations. It was nothing to do with kind of fancying the other one or any sort of flirting or anything like that. That just never happened.
I just was as relaxed as I possibly could be with Leo when I first met him, and very honest. And very open, and it was fine. It really was never a problem.
Working with Jim Cameron, I mean, he's great. He's a wonderful, wonderful director, but it's exhausting though. I mean, it is really, really exhausting stuff, just because you have to be so highly charged the whole time, and there is so much to do and everything. But I mean, I'm a masochist. I love working till I'm exhausted, so.
I don't think anyone could have done this movie besides him. He's completely passionate about what he does all the time, and a perfectionist.
When did this movie first occur to you? When did you know you were going to do it?
I was just sitting around, in between movies. I'd done Terminator 2, looking for kind of what to do next, and I just happened upon a tape of A Night to Remember, and I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. And so I popped it in, I sat one afternoon, and I just watched A Night to Remember, and the pieces just fell into place. I thought, I've got to do this, but what's my hook? And then it popped into my head, it's a love story.
And so I started reading up on the history of Titanic, not just the physicality of the wreck and the high technology of finding it, but you know, who were these people, you know, and what did they experience? And it became, to me, such a fascinating story. Then I reached that stage, you know, which every filmmaker does, that you're probably going to make a film. Yeah. And it's like, please, God, let it not be a film about Titanic, because that's going to be a lot of work.
I really felt that it was a mission and a responsibility to get it right.
And I got something in the mail, which was an invitation to a screening of Titanica, which was the IMAX film. So I promptly, you know, flew to Moscow and met with the people that had done the IMAX film and said, hey, can I use your subs? And then once they agreed, then it was, now I'm making a film. I guess I better come up with a story.
And so then you as a screenwriter, have got to create a story.
Exactly.
What's the objective of the story?
I think, to sum it up very succinctly, it's make it accessible. Get the audience over that hump of watching a period film where people dress differently and they speak differently. Get them in, get them involved subjectively in the event. And there's only one way to do that, which is through characters that you really love and care about. And, you know, we fall in love with Jack and Rose as they fall in love with each other, you know, up on the screen. And then there's a certain point where we realize we're on the ship with them.
The cost of Titanic skyrocketed. I remember reading about it. There was Jim Cameron's folly.
Right.
Studios began to lose faith.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think I'm really crazy?
Yeah. I mean, to be perfectly honest, when we realized that it was going to cost way more than it was supposed to, we're doomed. We're doomed. Our credibility is shot. I didn't want to see the film compromised, so I made compromises myself and said, look, I'm willing to work for 3 years for free, just don't wreck the movie.
The studios were so happy with you, they gave you back that money at the back end, so you were vindicated.
Yeah, they did the right thing.
Let me talk now about making the movie. How did you do it?
In general, in a general
sense? Give me a sense of the overwhelming challenge of making a movie that tries to take you onto a boat that is sinking into the ocean.
Well, it was a mission. You know, it was a mission to go and shoot film in one of the most extreme environments that I think motion picture film has ever been shot in. We were trying to go down there and shoot narrative film. And it was unbelievable to go 2.5 miles down to face that kind of pressure, to deal with the kind of technology required to do that, and to think you could pull it off, but we did pull it off. And that's pretty exciting.
Well, first of all, the ship was huge, and it took us a long time just to sort of get our arms around the enormity of this thing, the physical setting of the film, and how we were going to create that. It took us months and months of engineering and figuring out how we were going to angle the sets and so on, and then how we would use visual effects to complement it all. But
we decided to build 80% of the actual ship to 90% scale, but only built one side of the ship complete. And what we had to do, because we had the ocean only on one side, is we needed to flop the film. One of the best examples of flopping the film is actually the departure scene from Southampton Dock. If you were there on that day when we were filming, and you looked at the terminal building next door that said White Star Line, that writing was all backwards. And that was because the ship historically was on the opposite side, and we wanted to be accurate to history. So we flopped that entire sequence.
I just couldn't think of how you could explain to people what was going on below the water if you didn't already know. I mean, it is pretty cheeky that you're going to show everybody the end of the movie. Not only are people standing in line outside the movie theater saying, why am I standing in this line? I know what happens. But once they're watching the movie, you're going to show them the ending. But the sinking simulation animation, I think, was critical to an understanding of what's going on in those last few minutes.
really, when you're out there on the shooting day, the logistics are the staggering part. You know, you've got literally maybe 1,000 extras, and they all have to be in perfect period wardrobe, and they all have to be, you know, told what to do and how to perform.
Perfect period wardrobe you sent people around the world looking for.
Yes, yes. Well, well, like I said, we tried to be accurate, and all the costumes are very accurate to the period.
What was
we got
the
out
toughest
there.
challenge?
From a production standpoint, I think the toughest challenge was safety at all times. You know, we had thousands of amps of electricity going into the set, which is in salt water, with hundreds of people around it and on it, and keeping it electrically safe.
To show the ship actually sinking, we had to adjust the ship to a 6-degree angle. We then disconnect the front 180 feet of the ship and put it on hydraulic cables that will raise and lower it. And you will actually see the front section of the ship on camera go underwater as the water pours up on actors.
I think that people need to remember that a lot of what you see in this movie is real people running along a really huge set. Though visual effects might have added a component into the set, basically it's 90% the real deal.
Creating the illusion of the ship going to vertical was one of the greater challenges. We decided to build a giant teeter-totter of the stern of the ship. It would be at level, but then it could go up, just like a teeter-totter could, up to 90 degrees. We called this the $1 million shot, not only because it nearly cost that much, but because for Jim, it really sold the reality and the beauty of Titanic.
If you didn't appreciate the ship, you couldn't appreciate the sinking. So you had to appreciate it in the terms, in the subjective terms, that people felt about it before they knew they were on the Titanic. You know, it both celebrates the ship and it celebrates Jack's character at the same time, which is what I really love about that scene. It just makes it seem like the idea that you're gonna die, that disaster and doom are coming, are so far away.
As early as late 1995, nearly a year before we shot the scenes, Jim already had a very clear picture in his mind of exactly how to show the splitting and sinking of the ship, shot by shot.
What we're doing, we're sinking the damn ship. And what we're featuring right now in this particular angle is the actual rip, where it actually separates and opens up the side of the ship. So this is probably going to end up being about like 1 second of screen time, but.
Cut! Moment of capture of every element coming together. The sunset, I mean, that was all natural. There's no digital effects there, right? It just happened right in front of the lens. And it was a fragile moment. It only lasted for a few seconds. But the reason we got it was meticulous planning. And sure enough, that the sun started to come down below those clouds, and you got that really kind of moody, kind of mystical red and orange with the big glowering clouds up ahead. And we ran like hell to the bow of the ship, and we set it up really quickly, and we had no time. We had 10 minutes maybe at the most.
Sunset's amazing, go, go, go. And we'd be like, what? And suddenly Leo and I are having to basically climb up this kind of like forklift extended, protracted thing. So we'd climb up this damn ladder.
And she looks at the sunset, and she looks over at me in the camera crane, and she screams at the top of her lungs, "Shoot!" Which normally is my job. So I was like, oh, okay, roll, like she said. We shot 2 takes before we lost the light. The first one, completely out of focus. The second one is out of focus for about 4 seconds, and then it pops in. And that's the one that's in the movie.
How you end a movie is so important. The challenge is, how can you create a hopeful beat when most of your main characters die tragically? I think one of the keys to the film's success was that Jim was able to create an ending that in one shot turned what could have been a bittersweet, tragic ending, a real downer, into something beautiful and emotionally satisfying.
I'd just like everybody to go with me just for a second on something here. I'd like to do a few seconds of silence in remembrance of the 1,500 men, women, and children who died when the great ship died. And the message of Titanic, of course, is that if the great ship can sink, the unthinkable can happen, the future's unknowable. The only thing that we truly own is today. Life is precious, so during these few seconds, I'd like you to also listen to the beating of your own heart, which is the most precious thing in the world. Join me, please, in a few seconds of silence for Titanic.